On Wednesday, California House Representative Mike Thompson claimed that 90% of Americans support the Universal Background Check gun control bill, H.R. 8. I'm here to tell you today that this is not true. The anti-gun lobby has been making this lie up for years.
Today, polls will tell you that 97% of Americans believe that everybody should go through a background check before they purchase a weapon.
90% of Americans support this law.
90% of Americans support universal background checks.
92% of American households, or 93% of households that have gun owners, believe you should have a universal background check before buying a gun.
They've been saying this for so long, I did a video about it in 2012. Conducting a survey based around one vague question pertaining to the ultimate conclusion and then toting it around like it's gospel is misleading and deceiving, and it's sickening. Of course 90% of Americans agree with background checks, but here's the question they didn't ask. Do you agree with the gun registration in order to enforce the universal background check? They're not asking that question. I wonder why. Shop that question around and see if you hit a 90% approval rating. If Hitler conducted a survey asking if you agree with improving Germany, he would get a 90% approval. Right up until they found out that he believed killing an entire group of people was his way of doing it. They tried to use the same tactic with the Save the Kids rhetoric for the assault weapons ban. If I'm asked, are you willing to give up all your guns in order to save the kids' lives? What do you think I'm gonna say? The question assumes the answer in the question. How do you answer no without looking like a monster? Unless the follow-up question is, do you believe that giving up all your guns will save the kids? Surveys and polls only represent the people who respond to them. And I've never been asked about a universal background check in a survey. Have you? Surveys aren't gospel, they're advocacy whores. Do and say the right thing, and they'll do and say whatever you want them to. If I want to pass an assault weapons ban, and I have the choice of either asking 100,000 people in California versus 100,000 people in South Texas by the Mexican border if they believe anyone needed an assault weapon, who do you think I'm going to ask? Exactly. Don't fall for this BS, because I almost did. And then I got to thinking, wait a minute, something just isn't right here. If 90% of Americans supported universal background checks, we wouldn't still be having this conversation in 2021. The 90% of Americans support universal background checks line is a shaming tactic designed to artificially manufacture groupthink. They say it so that you feel guilty if you don't agree with it. Because if 90% of Americans support it, then something must be wrong with you if you don't. The anti-gun lobby and their bought and paid for politicians tried to pass universal background checks in 2013, using the same tired lie, 90% of Americans support universal background checks. But the bill didn't pass. A week after the bill failed, a Gallup poll found that only 65% of Americans thought the Senate should have passed the bill to expand background checks for gun purchases. I'm not a math genius, but that ain't 90%. This is what they do. A bunch of little power-hungry weirdos put together these misleading little studies to not find an answer, but to manufacture the answer that they want, so they can create a false authority and use it to manipulate you. Universal background checks are stupid because there's no way to enforce them without a national database with every gun sold, which would be the very definition of a national gun registry. And I assure you that if you ask Americans if they were okay with the government having a national database with all of their information and all the guns they own, they wouldn't give a support of 90%. Yet the only way to enforce a universal background check is to have a national gun registry. But they know they can't ask that question and get the support they want. So instead they ask a vague milquetoast question like, do you support background checks? Knowing well, very few people are going to say no to that sophomore question on the surface. But if you explain to them what you need to enforce it, they'd say, oh no. They're going to vote on this silly H.R. 8 bill in the House very soon. I wouldn't be surprised if by the time you watch this, it's already passed in the House. Our best chance at stopping this bill is in the Senate, because the most powerful tool we have to fight this bill is the filibuster. And ironically, our biggest possible ally to protect that filibuster is a Democrat, and his name is Joe Manchin of West Virginia. Joe Manchin is a moderate Democrat, which means he doesn't blindly placate to the extremists in his party. In order to get rid of the filibuster, there needs to be 51 votes. Right now, the Senate is split 50-50 between Democrats and Republicans, giving Kamala Harris the deciding vote. But none of that matters if Manchin doesn't vote along party lines, and he has a history of being an independent thinker, so this is very possible. On top of this, Manchin prides himself on being a politician of his constituents. I say all that to say this. Anyone watching this video needs to write, call, email, smoke signals, slide in DMs, or whatever way you choose to communicate and politely let Joe Manchin know why he should not vote to get rid of the filibuster. I'll put a link to all of Joe Manchin's contact points in the description section of this video. I'm sure the YouTube algorithm is going to do a phenomenal job of suppressing this message. So please share this video with as many people as you can so we can beat the algorithm and get our two-way message out to the masses. Also, don't forget to like this video and leave a comment and hit the bell and subscribe button. If you're looking for where to purchase your defund gun control shirts, hats, and drinkware, there's a link in the description section of this video.